Who is Uncle Bill, and why were his tomatoes so inspiring? Why should we take time considering our opportunities? What do you really have to offer to the bigger fish in business? If you'd like to find out, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Between Views. I'm your host, Alec Koski. This podcast aims to cast light on and connect you with inspirational people, identify them as potential mentors in your journey, and share their stories and wisdom with the world, all the while learning about early business and its dynamics. In this episode, we converse with Wayne Ford, CEO at Vertical Patch, about some life-changing tomatoes and who we can really collaborate with.
I guess more of like a personal one. Why do you actually love plants and veggies so much? Like your veggies out there, I know the feeling when you show someone your patch.
Yeah.
And you're like, here's my babies, and look at this one. This is a pumpkin, and this is a da-da-da, and you show everyone, and it's a really proud moment. It's almost like a proud dad moment, not a dad, but I imagine that like similar kind of feeling. You're like, my son did this today. When your veggies is blooming, I think it's something that you and I sort of bonded over in a way, that connection having the garden there. So where did veggie gardening start for you, and why do you love it so much?
Look, I was lucky enough to have a couple of parents who loved their little veggie patch, and I had an uncle particularly who was obsessed with growing the perfect tomato.
Oh, really?
And
is this the same uncle you're talking about?
Yeah. Look, he went to extreme lengths to try and get the best out of his tomatoes.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, because he was a single guy, he was also nearly blind as a bat, but he just loved his tomatoes. And the flavour out of those tomatoes was just to die for. We always knew when someone was coming around, Uncle Bill's tomatoes were it. Because we'd be eating Uncle Bill's tomatoes for, the next 2 months over summer.
Oh, really?
And his tomatoes were just like, the flavour was incredible. I always remember the one particular tomato variety which is called Gross Liss, and anyone who's grown tomatoes knows Gross Liss tomatoes. So he would grow these things, and they had the most intense flavour coming out of those tomatoes. And so I really spent quite a bit of time with Uncle Bill to find out what the hell he was doing here, And so that got my fascination going in the whole, what can you do with your backyard garden, and how does, what were the interests there? And likewise, whether it's a tomato, whether it's, we've got a couple of fruit trees here as well. That's a little bit more of a science, but just being able to grow something and then share it with people. So we've got a whole bunch of mates, a nice community here in Canberra that we just, if we've got an excess of something, I always love to give people when they come here a little box of something and just say, hey, this is us. It's also us just saying thanks for you guys being who you are. Sorry, I don't think I've got anything for you on your exit here.
Yeah, I thought I was going out with
you had some leafy greens,
Wayne's tomatoes today, but I guess not.
No tomatoes, but maybe
did have tomato soup though.
Yeah,
so
that's true. And you had some of the microgreens.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
That was pretty cool.
So you did provide still.
I did, a little bit.
It's nice, isn't it? Sharing with the people around you.
It's a wonderful thing, and particularly doing it over a table, you're eating food with people. That's also a pretty, passion of mine, is to actually grow something and then to cook something using that produce, and then, having people around and sharing that. That's awesome. And really that's where a lot of it has come from. It was sitting around that table with Uncle Bill's bloody tomatoes, because we'd all marvel at what's he going to bring. And of course he started exploring different varieties, and it was like, wow, what's this one? It was different to the Gross Liss. It was Apollo was another one. And, again, I'm just thinking about now all the different names that was there. So that's where I got it from. I got it from, luckily, my mum and dad, and also my good old Uncle Bill, the mag tomato grower. So, and then it just steamrolled from there. Look, the other part to this was, I have always been really interested in the environment, and so even in my role where I was head of the building services and the property services group, they threw me in the deep end of looking after the environmental risk associated with running these properties. And I actually very quickly turned it around and said, look, it's more than just looking after the environmental risk. And part of that was, what's an environmental risk of running a property? Well, we had properties where we'd have chemical factories. We had a foundry in one of our industrial properties in the company that I work with. And so we'd have to look at what are these guys doing to the property itself, as well as what they could be doing to the immediate environment around that. So we'd do these what's called environmental risk assessments, and that would demonstrate that we're actually trying to minimise the impact to the environment of our tenants that sat within the properties. And then I started getting involved in this word called sustainability, and that was, how do you make our properties more sustainable, which I don't always like using the word sustainable.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. I don't feel like those two words go together very well.
But sustainability to me was that whole thing of looking after the environment, looking at the social impact, and then, of course, even being financially viable. So I introduced to this rather large property group this thing called sustainability reporting, which actually looked at all those three aspects. How do you do that? Wow, that was me doing some research to find out there's 20 different ways or 300 different ways of how you can report on your sustainability aspects of your business. And so I actually looked to the United Nations, had a thing called the Global Reporting Initiative, which said, if we're going to introduce sustainability reporting within businesses and organisations and corporations, what does it start to look like? So they created this framework. I then used that framework to do our first sustainability report against what was called then the Deutsche Bank Real Estate Group, which was at the time one of the largest property groups across the world. And we did it for Australia and New Zealand. And that was the first of the sustainability reports, and that's the first that it continues through to today. That was in 2007. So I was really interested in how you can start to shape that whole consciousness of environment, but also the consciousness of social impact as well. And that to me was, I think that was great that I was able to turn around a large organisation that was principally focused on property, but also making a buck, and then saying, well, there's other aspects to what we do. And then what is that whole thing of sustainability? Because I get asked that question 300 times.
Yeah.
What is sustainability? So doing this vertical farming, I thought, and still continue to think, that it is a lot kinder to the environment in the way that we deal with things, because we don't use pesticides, herbicides. We have a closed loop of water. We use organic products, and we think we create a produce that doesn't have a lot of wastage to it. So from a farming perspective, it's heading in the right direction. Is it perfect? No. Can it be improved? Yes. And what can we do to continually improve what we do?
That's a question you ask yourselves often.
All the time, yeah. And there's either a dollar value to it, or there's an environmental aspect to it as well. So, and potentially a social impact. That's a big part of what we're trying. And I suppose that's a bit of philosophy as well to it.
Yeah, the question that comes up in my mind with that one is, like, it sounds like you got yourself into a good position first before you've moved into your own business. Because there's one thing that I think about all the time. I'm like, is it better off, do you reckon, to like get yourself like a good solid job first, gather that sort of, initial energy and base and setting before you start your business? Or like, does it matter? Like, what would you give it as advice to someone if you're like, okay, you're going to start your own business? What would you tell your own sons?
Yeah.
If they were looking at doing something like what you did?
Look, I've run a few businesses, and there's been a few startup businesses. I've worked for large corporates like Deutsche Bank as an example. I've worked for state governments. I've worked, so I've worked in many different aspects, including working for myself. Each of those have come to me at different times in my career, and to say I would pick one over the other before that one, it really comes down to what are the opportunities that present yourself. It's really hard to get into business. However, if you're a tradesman and you want to start up your own business, as in, running an electrical trade business or something, it's a little bit easier in that you've got a commodity that a lot of people want. Is it going to be easy to run a business? A lot of tradies don't really understand the other aspects of running a business. Apart from, hey, look, I'm a good electrician. That doesn't make you a good, business partner owner. So my advice would be, look at where you are and what stage of your life that you're in. And a lot of people love the security of a large organisation, large corporate, government type job.
Yeah,
so
lots of what they call it, the golden handcuffs.
There's certainly that security of, that's good. And if you've got a young family and you go, wow, I'm not going to risk a whole bunch of stuff to go out my own, that's a difficult one to get to. I've been lucky enough that I've worked with a whole bunch of people who have either taken some of that risk away from running a business by yourself, and that's been extreme. Again, I've just been extremely lucky and grateful that I've been able to do that. And look, I think you've always got to be open to opportunities. That's probably the biggest thing I would say. So even if you are, sitting at home now and you're a teacher or something like that, and you go, wow, I think there's another opportunity for me over here, explore it, have a look at it, but really go into it with your eyes open, and also with a reality check of, do I really think this is, as rosy as it possibly can be? Yeah. Because there will be those times where you go, it's not quite what I thought it was going to be. So if you can try before you buy, go and test it, go and speak to some people who are doing something similar to you, explore that aspect of it and go, is it really that, I'm thinking of it's like this. Is it really like that? And you'd be surprised how generous people will be to give you some advice, and also to really give you a good view as to, what it's like running a business versus, having the security of a really good job with, within a large organisation or a corporation. But again, a lot of people don't like that as well and are looking to explore those other avenues. So, yeah, I'd suggest consider where you are in your current life's journey, and then consider what's some good options for you. So
okay, so the thing that's standing out to me is you're talking about opportunity.
Yep.
And you've had some awesome ones presented in your life, and from what I've seen in life so far, it seems like the opportunity, they do just pop up through people a lot of the time, people you work alongside or you just randomly run into. Like you said, they have that bit of information that might be like the critical thing for you to hear so you can do the next thing. When the opportunities do come up and they're like an awesome one, should you just take them?
Look, I think, again, you've got to weigh up what exactly is. Look, a big part of running a business is understanding, what do you really think is the opportunity here? What is the cost of that opportunity? What is the timing of that opportunity? But also, what is, am I going to make some money out of this? A lot of people don't look at that end product and go, what is my business plan? And if my business plan is to get to that, you've really got to construct it in such a way to go, right, it's really going to take me 6 months to get everything together before I can actually start selling something, whether that's my services or something that I'm producing. And then delving into that and going, wow, is 6 months, the time frame that I'm talking about? And even if you start selling stuff, you might only start selling that really slowly. So there might be a 12-month lag before you actually get up to 100% speed or even 60% speed. So you've got to really map all that out. And I think that's a big part of what a lot of people don't do. And then being very conservative with that and just don't go, oh, I think we're going to sell 6,000 widgets in, 2 days sort of thing. That's always nice to dream about that stuff, but you've got to get realistic with it. And I think there's lots of people who will give you really good advice. Lots of people who, if that's what you're trying to do, look at how they're doing it and will offer you lots of assistance maybe. And then, yeah, definitely. I mean, if it all stacks up from that perspective and you just happen to be at that point where you can, yeah, I think I could do this. But also look to your resources and go, who else can I leverage here to help me on the journey? Because just doing it by yourself is pretty damn tough.
It's a heavy weight to bear. It's one thing I've noticed so far is like it can be challenging to do it all yourself, especially in terms of like motivation and with things like this, like podcasting, for example. You're not like in an office. You actually need to be in like a quiet location and alone. And that's great. Like I actually really enjoy working on it. It's amazing. But you're just missing that element when you go out on your own of literally you're on your own.
Yeah.
So it's nice when you go to work because you get to sit and talk with people. We're social creatures. So yeah, I guess you're right. I need to potentially look for some sort of partnership with this or people who are doing the same or just someone who could help, like you said, 1 day a week. It's a tricky stage, though, in the way that it's not a money-earning business yet. So if I get someone, they just also, I guess, got to be same stage as me for a little bit. Like, I don't know, because I can't necessarily pay them unless my plan was to make cash through that movement.
Yeah.
It's kind of
look, you'd be surprised once you start talking to people about it because everyone thinks they've got a unique product or something different to someone else.
Yeah.
There will be those organisations that are already doing podcasts but are not doing it in the area that you're dealing with. So there's also opportunities as well. I mean, I'll give our Singaporean business partner a bit of a rap here because they're such a huge beast compared to what we are. And when we started talking to them, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh, they're not interested in us. We're only a small minnow in a massive pool of sharks, and not so much sharks. That's probably not the right term for them, but they were certainly bigger fish than us. And I thought they probably wouldn't be interested in having a chat to us, let alone thinking about a partnership or an agreement together. And yet, what came out of the conversation was, what you guys are doing is quite unique. We're not doing it in Singapore. We'd like to think that you guys could add value to our business. And we were like, well, we think you guys will add value to our business. So don't always think that someone, a large entity that you might talk to may not be able to use what services that you're doing or product that you're producing. And so, and that was a real eye opener for us. It was like, never assume that someone who's, such a big entity is going to be able to do, is even interested or not interested in you. So always think that, no, we're pretty unique, or there's something that we could always, partner with, or we've got some value that they may not have. And I'd say that to any business situation, because even as you want to build a business, you're always looking to, what can I do? Can I just expand it by geographic basis?
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard, because you might know Sydney really well, you might know, Singapore really well.
Yeah.
But you don't know Melbourne, or you might not know these other locations that you want to move into. So, and that goes to, the stuff that you guys are doing as well from a podcast perspective. You're in a very good niche that others may not be doing that. And so think of it from that perspective and say, okay, we can add value to any of these other bigger podcasters
Yeah.
who might be looking for exactly what you're.
I see. I literally just was coming across this week. Like I was listening to another podcast, which is nonsensical. It's just this. There's not much going on in it. It's just purely for entertainment, which is valuable
Yeah.
these days. The experience itself. But I realized they were part of a much larger podcasting co-op, so they were able to still do their podcast, but they did it as a job. Like they weren't just alone. They were doing their product, but they were doing it with better equipment and more people on the job, and the product became much nicer and more refined. And what you said before about like not being afraid of the big fish and actually being like, no, I could add value to that fish in a way, and they can help us too. That's so brave. Like, what are you doing? Are you just like sending out Hail Marys to like massive companies and just being like, maybe? Like, is there an element of just like giving it a crack and seeing, or like how do you identify which big fish is one that you should interact with?
Look, a large part of it is, and again, this goes to whether you're trying to partner up with people who want to invest in your business or people who want to help you with resources. You got to be able to work with these people. And if on that first initial discussion with them you go, oh, something weird about that person, or I'm not really connecting with them, then that's usually a pretty good sign that it's going to be hard for you to partner with them, or it's going to be hard to work with them. I mean, they may turn into something different to what you first met, but generally speaking, again, even if it's from an investment perspective, we'd like to know that we could actually, sit down with these people and actually have a respectful conversation. They're respecting us, we're respecting them, but also we think, that we could get on. And that's a big part. If you don't think you can get on from day one, it's unlikely that ship will turn around. And, in 3 months' time, all of a sudden you've got this wonderful relationship going. So I'd always question people to say, really look at those partners and go, and whether it's someone who's your supplier or whether it's someone who's coming in to help from a resource perspective, or whether it's an investment partner, you've really got to check them out, and you should be asking just as much questions of them as they are asking of you. And if you're not getting on and that connection's just not there, then there's a good chance that they're probably not the right supplier for you, or they're not the right investor for you, or they're not the right, industry partner.
This is like business dating.
100%. Yeah, it is.
Literally.
It is. Yeah. And, you just like in life, you go, I'm happy to meet you and you're a nice enough person, but, I don't think, we'll probably have a chat again. I'm not saying about that about us. I'm saying about, that's what happens. I mean, you don't have to get on and, be able to have a beer with that person down the pub. I'm not talking about that, but I'm saying there's got to be a level of mutual respect, but there's also got to be that level of, I get what you guys are doing. I respect what you're doing. And likewise, you've got to have the same, level of respect and ability to think, well, I can work with these people.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, regardless of like the size, you're both bringing something to offer. You're having a respectful chat. You're being like, this is what I have to offer you, and I'd love to help. But you also, even though they might be bigger, you got to be like, what can you help me with too? Like, it's okay to ask that question.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised about some of those things that are available to you through that partnership.
Yeah.
And try and always explore that. I mean, it's, and whether it's to help you at that corporate level, it might be that, we can help you out with, payroll, or there might be a function.
So there might be some kind of collaboration you could do.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many different aspects to running a business that you could perhaps leverage with any of the industry partners that you might want to work with. But think about that. Yeah.
I guess on a small level, it's making me instantly think about each of these episodes is a partnership.
Yep.
In podcasting and I guess radio, you would call it, I suppose. Like this, in a way, is a partnership, because we're actually sharing information. I hope that out of all the people who I have, someone looks towards what you're doing or learns from you. But at the same time, like, it goes both ways. So I guess it's already kind of happening. I didn't even realize that I've somehow been doing it for for a bit already without having realized that I was.
Yeah, it's of value, and I'm sure someone will get something out of this. Well, certainly out of your podcast. Whether they'll get something out of this is another thing.
And I get to learn from you too. One of the main reasons that I started doing this in the first place was I just had this desire to look for mentors.
Yeah.
And I found that so many people have something that you can learn with them, like just by sitting and having a chat. And it's those little light bulb moments. I probably had 4 or 5 this chat that just went off, and I was like, oh, got it now. And this is exactly what one of my major mentors, his name's Jerry Garbulski, was talking about on his own podcast. It's like why he does it in the first place is because while they're chatting, like, you get to hear yourself say your ideas as well again. And, sometimes you have the light bulb moment while you're chatting about things and teaching someone as well, or it helps you remember it better. I just think it's a really cool process. So I'm really enjoying our chat today as well.
No, it's been great, Alex. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah. Okay. We do have enough time just for one more question on the show. So it's the question that we ask at the end of each show. And the last one was left to you by a guy who shapes hand planes, Owen Surfcraft, a very dear friend of mine. And he left the question.
There's a song that I love by Explosions in the Sky.
Yeah.
And the song title is Remember Me as a Time of Day. And I love that because I think that's it says a lot about a person. The question would be, if you were to be remembered by a certain time of day, what time of day would it be?
Oh, okay. Time of day would definitely be first thing in the morning. So I love waking up at the first thing in the morning, and it's always a great opportunity to get your thoughts clear and also get set the day up. But it's a beautiful time of the day. So that's hopefully, if I was to be remembered, it would be that. So, yeah. Nice.
Oh, it's 5 o'clock. That means we've got to do a high five. That was great timing, actually. So, yeah, just a little bit of info for people listening. I've had a timer on my watch for about getting near 2 years now, where at 5 o'clock I will do a high five with whoever's sitting next to me, or a self five for doing a great work that day if I'm alone.
That's awesome. I'm taking that one.
So that's what that is.
That's a good one.
And I guess the final part now, and then we'll finish up, is you have to leave a question for our next guest. You don't know who it is. It's just a random Hail Mary thrown out into the void.
Look, I love the whole idea of paying it forward. So one of the things I would probably ask someone would be, if you were to think of your best mentoring moment, what would it be?
They personally?
Yep.
The time that they mentored and taught someone?
Could be just there was something that they did as a mentor to someone, something, a group, or, it could be an individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Oh, thanks again.
Good on you.
In that case, I'll say thank you so much for your time.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you for sharing your information with me because it's really valuable.
Yeah.
Thank you for providing all the light bulb moments that I've had during this little session. Yeah, it's truly valuable, and I just am blown away by how people are willing to sit down with me for so long and just chat and share their knowledge. It's great, and I really appreciate it, so thank you.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Yeah. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you for listening to part 4 of our interview with Wayne. If you enjoyed what you heard, then please jump over to Vertical Patch and give them a follow, or go and check out their website. I'll leave it in the link below. Secondly, if you listen regularly and want to hear more, then please help us out by leaving a star rating and comment, and we can continue to bring you more and more episodes. Remember to like or share it with a friend if you found the information valuable, and of course, like normal, you can purchase me a scrumptious cup of Make More Podcast Juice at buymeacoffee.com/betweenviews if you got an extra kick out of it. In other news, Between Views is looking for collaborators in Instagram, social media, and product development. Of course, marketing. If you want to join the team, then please reach out on Instagram. Thanks so much. Finally, if you know someone who deserves to be interviewed or just have some feedback, then send us an email at betweenviewsbv@gmail.com or message us on Instagram. Thanks again and see you soon. Between Views.